Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to 22 Panels and the Heroes in Bronze uh, book club. Heroes of Bronze, uh, Bronzed Heroes. Mark's laughing
Bronze.
at me, but he's not
I
speaking
just,
out loud.
I just, the heroes in bronze kind of struck my fancy. That's kind of funny.
Well, that was where that's where I thought I had it. I
Yeah,
thought we
that's it.
kind of talked it through.
I, 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 my
I don't
brain
remember if it
doesn't
was
work these
Heroes in
days.
Bronze or Heroes of Bronze. I'd have to go look at what I actually tagged the last one as. But I can change them both. I'm cool with that. Heroes in
Bronze
Bronze is
baby
the winner.
shoes, as we were all youngsters when these came out. Anyway,
I mean, you guys were youngsters.
anyway.
I wasn't alive when this came
1971,
Hey,
A
out.
Space Odyssey.
This is 70, 71, right around there. I would have been one
I
or
think it
two.
was like 72. Like,
72?
because, yeah,
Oh,
because like I suggested this because we were coming out of, the Fourth World, and I was curious, and I'd never read it. So I was like,
well,
My
one of the
mother
chapters
was in
was
middle
titled
school when these came out.
1971, A Space Odyssey. So
so yeah, it's probably 71. You're right. What am I talking about? I don't know what I'm talking about.
actually,
Right
it's called,
around there, early 70s.
Early 70s. That's right.
It's called
Yeah.
what?
1971, A Space Odyssey.
well,
Uh,
it's
It was one of the
1971.
parts of
Odyssey. I don't know why there's a SP at the end of space.
I think it's supposed to indicate that all of it's echoing. It's space, 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 Odyssey, Odyssey.
All right.
Okay.
There you go. That Roy Thomas. Okay. I want to say I I I'm loving this story actually, and it's interesting to me because like look, and it's specifically I was sitting thinking about this as opposed to the Fourth World, right? And that it sort of is exactly in a way, it's when you're talking about Roy Thomas, clearly the primary acolyte and uh, uh, Padawan, shall we say, of Stan Lee, right? As opposed to what Jack Kirby was doing over at DC about the same time, and how much easier it is to just enjoy the story and actually be involved with it because the characters like he's standing on the shoulder. Thomas is standing on the shoulders of giants, right? He's standing on what Jack and Stan created, but it's also like so integrated into the tapestry of the Marvel universe that you immediately just feel like, okay, I understand what's going on, and then when the little twists happen that you're like, oh my God, that was 10 years ago that they did that, and now it came back. And I don't know, it's just fun. And it doesn't feel like so much of the Fourth World felt like heavy lifting, of like, okay, what does this mean? Where is this going? How does this, and this feels like it feels to me it's welcoming and I'm enjoying it. All right.
This,
See you guys
it,
next month.
it feels to me, I thought, enjoying it, although I was a little kind of after the first one, I was like, when is this war supposed to start?
Well, it's been going on for a long time.
Yeah, but we're all
It's like
stuck
the
on
Board
Earth.
Saga.
Um, but it feels to me like this is Roy Thomas. I mean, this is real fanboy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Like this feels like Roy just finally playing in the sandbox,
Yeah.
right? It's I've got Jack and Stan's toys, and I'm gonna play with them.
Right.
And here's the the cows killed me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's fun for
I
that.
think I was on the treadmill at the gym reading that, and I actually started cackling. I was just like, that's just funny.
They keep coming back too. Once you get the cows, then they just it keeps coming down into later years too. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, and
I will say that starting Thomas's prose, oh my God, is it purple? Like it
mhm.
everything is it's like he's literally begins this as a parody of Stan Lee in some ways. Because
Yeah.
I'm reading it and I had to read some just to my wife and go, you would not believe the dialogue or especially the captions in
Yeah,
this. Just
Yeah.
every massive word he can stick in one after another. That's his thing. So
Yeah.
it was hilarious that way, I thought, for a while.
in particular, I thought the second issue we read, which I think is issue 93 this week with Ant-Man,
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
all the pop culture references, like shout out to the EC fan addicts.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
yeah,
Well, and actually, I excuse me. Hold on. I'm going to mute so I can hack up a lung.
Well, while he's hacking up a lung, I'll say I also thought that it was interesting that there were three really different tones for the first issue had a lot of social commentary. The second issue might have inspired Inner Space, the really mediocre movie from the
Hmm.
late 80s. Um, and then the third issue is like the first one that has any sort of intergalactic civil war really going on at all.
Yeah, I
So which
think
issues are
well,
we talking about this week?
I mean, I will say,
uh
Tad,
it's
92, 93, and 94.
yeah.
Okay,
when you say it inspired Inner Space, it was also inspired by Fantastic Voyage, which
true.
Well,
you haven't
sure,
seen.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
You need
there's
Fantastic Voyage. She
the
even makes a reference to Raquel Welch.
yeah. Well, here's I think it's also where we can see some of the, that first issue, so many of the Roy Thomas obsessions are laid bare because, Roy Thomas uh n- always, his relitigating of the HUAC committee uh hearings, like he's come back to that like three times. He did it with the Justice Society.
Right.
He's doing it here. I also there's that whole panel where Rick Jones is talking about the heroes he loved when he was a kid and how it was all black and white and that he's realized that it's now gray. And it's like that's basically, I think, Roy putting his own voice into Rick Jones. And really, quite frankly, with what the Roy's position at Marvel, he Rick Jones could be the viewpoint character for Roy Thomas very easily. Um, but yeah, I really like that. I think but it does have to be said that when we get to issue 93, things really ramp up just for the simple fact that we now have Neil Adams artwork. And
Oh yeah.
and it's just so much like as much as I love Buscema, it really just goes like it goes to 11 all like right off the bat.
Yeah.
And it is again one of those things like it's one of those things I said when we were talking about the fourth world. Like at the time, like this was the exciting artwork. This was the thing that kids were going mad over was this ultra like, oh my God, it looks real. Little did we know that you know what was coming, but the Neil Adams artwork, it just pops, man. Like and I can imagine like when Neil hit the industry, like how like just going from the issue to the next and seeing that change, it really does sort of bring home how much different what Neil was doing was from other people who were, had been working in the industry, you know?
And he brought his Zipatone with him.
Yes, he did.
It is so much. But yeah, startling. Again, like you said, love Sal Buscema.
Yeah.
And then you turn the page and it's like, wait, this is
Yeah.
this is stepped up.
Hold up a second. Even that first splash page, like it's like you can see how much he learned from Kirby, but it's also like so well rendered that it's you know it's just like it's incredible. I know. Anyway.
Well, that's yeah. I mean, that's the page that caught the attention there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I can't remember
Yeah,
what I was saying.
I love everything about Neil Adams' art. Like back in the
Yeah.
day, it was he and George Perez were the gods for me, basically. Anything they
Yeah.
did, those were books I was going to track down. And I loved having these when I was kids. I tracked them down from a dude who was sort of the one who got me into comics, and then he was at a flea market all the time. So he would find the stuff I wanted and bring it back, and once a month during the summer I could get the good stuff from him. And so I had pretty much all of these when I was a kid, and they were
Wow.
just absolutely the treasures. So but yeah, it is crazy because Buscema, he would never ruin a story,
No.
but he's also not necessarily going to elevate it so much. And it looks like Thomas also, like his story changes when the artist changes.
Mhm.
I think he amps up what he's doing because he's like, shit, I've got responsibility to not ruin this artwork now. I think he realizes what was going on.
Well, and I think I mean that's one of the strengths of the Marvel method, right? That the artwork's coming in and it's like, oh, wow, this is exciting. And that's quite honestly, that may be why starts going to all of these pop culture references and maybe getting even more florid because it's like, oh, look at this, I gotta
Mhm.
step up to this. Um, but yeah, I was yeah, I think that these three issues in particular are just really kind of a nice uh it's the shifting ground of what this story is about. I mean, and like uh, again, this this storyline is a blind spot for me. So I don't really know how it works out, but I'm assuming like it feels like the first three issues were the Kree, and these three issues are sort of the Skrulls. Because I assume that a lot of these hearings are being manipulated by the Skrulls.
Well, that
Um,
raises an interesting question.
yeah,
In the first issue, let's talk about the first issue.
yeah.
Um, or wait, is that the second issue? Oh yeah, it's the first issue 92 that we're reading.
Yeah.
Is that Reed and Ben or are those scrolls?
I don't know.
Because I'd like to think that it's not Ben,
Right.
his reactionary
Yeah.
reactions, but it seems like it might be Reed.
Yeah. Well, I
So,
mean,
I mean,
look,
what are your thoughts on that?
uh, well, I have very deep and strong feelings about Benjamin J. Grimm, the
Right.
ever loving
That's
blue-eyed
why
thing.
I asked.
Yeah, and I think it does strike me as somewhat reactionary, but at the same time, like maybe it's not them. Although it does seem like here's the weird thing, right? I'm fully convinced that this senator, whatever, I can't remember the guy's name.
Braddock.
Yeah, Braddock is a Skrull. I I don't know that. This is just me making an assumption. But and we know that the Avengers who come in and tell them to get the hell out of the mansion are Skrulls.
Yeah.
And so but all of this is happening it seems like in a very public way. If in fact that is not Reed and Ben, but Skrulls, wouldn't they have seen it on TV and been like, wait a minute? But
Right.
and I know, but that it does come to this kind of point with Ben where Ben Grimm was always a way that Stan could put somebody really caustic in the middle of the situation. Like he did have a tendency to fly off the handle about certain things, and maybe you could stretch that to this situation. Like, d see, now we're getting fanboy here because I'm going to be like, yeah, now is that really Ben Grimm?
Well, that's why I asked the question.
I know, but I do find myself thinking if the Avengers that were in that hearing, like let's say it is Ben, if the Avengers who were in that hearing were Cap and Iron Man and Thor, I don't think he would have reacted that way. I think that much like everyone, this is like, well, these aren't the real Avengers. That seems to be like a real running sub conflict
Yeah.
through this entire series,
Which in many
And
ways fits in with your fanboy theory,
sure,
because there probably were a lot of people who at the time were writing in going, these aren't my Avengers. I want
yeah,
the original guys, and
right,
what's with all of these second-rate characters in the Avengers or whatever. So
yeah,
it strikes me that what you said earlier, I hadn't thought about it. But this is sort of like a reactionary fanboy dream of a story in a lot of ways,
yeah,
where calling out he's calling out the EC fans. The HUAC stuff, I think for a lot of younger guys of that generation, merges in with the anger they have at the Senate committee hearings against comic books, which were kind of
yeah,
part of
yeah,
the whole Red Scare, to the
yep,
point where they probably, he probably figures he's pretty much preaching to the choir in terms of being anti sort of Red Scare populism. And
yeah.
this really does seem like he's just coming out and saying Roy Thomas is now in charge, and it's going to be all the way you wanted it from back in the day. You know,
although
that's kind of
although
crazy.
he does have that, like there's that whole soliloquy from Rick where he's like, I thought of when I was a kid, I thought of
Hmm.
comics as black and white, and that it doesn't really work that way. And I think that's, that it's in a very real way. Like I think Roy has become as divisive a figure as Stan is, right? I think that, he's an apologist. He, his plotting of
Absolutely.
Conan he would just hand an artist a copy of one of the Conan stories with lines highlighted. And it's like, okay, well, like I think that I've always felt that was um I think that those arguments are usually pretty unfair. But I mean, like I think that he does have a very clear uh viewpoint
Absolutely.
on what these stories mean, what they can mean, and what they should mean, right? And I think that that's super interesting because, again, this is also where we have that first generation of fanboys, for lack of a
Hmm.
better term, entering the industry and now being creators. And that, like, that Rick Jones soliloquy, right? I don't think I could ever imagine Stan writing that.
No,
I
but
I
I mean
don't think
the other thing too
yeah.
is that again when you're talking about that, it interests me because when you think of Star Wars fans have two things they demand. One is that nothing ever changes and it's just like when they were five, and the other is that the stories grow up and take them seriously.
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
they don't want anything to change. But then if you actually do have Muppets in Star Wars, like when they were kids, they blow a gasket. And it's
Right.
sort of, I mean, in some ways, that soliloquy is saying that, that he's going back and he's like, I'm going to give you the real Avengers and everything. But comics are now growing up and more serious, and it's not all just black and white. These heroes
Right.
are real people again, and we're going to deal with social causes. And as there's always been that impossible push between the two of wanting it to be just like when you were a kid and yet wanting it to not insult your intelligence now that you're older.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah. No, I think that is the constant through line of nostalgia, no matter what it may be. It's
mhm.
like, and look, I was 5 years old when Star Wars came out. One of my earliest memories is my dad taking me to this tiny movie theater in this Nebraska town where we were living at the time. Every seat full, the aisles completely full of people sitting in front of front of the screen, and like me sitting there thinking, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And like,
Mhm.
I do like to revisit that feeling. I do like to feel that. But I also think, you know, and I think this is very true. I think this is very true of comics now as well. And I don't think it was I like I have to be very cautious about what I'm about to say because I think that there's always fan arguments, right? Always, right? But I think that as these properties have become somehow more and more and more important with a larger pop culture palette,
Mhm.
that more and more people want to see what they want to see in it, right? And that it becomes this argument, right? Because like I always, it always fascinates me how people are always like, well, I want to see. It's just like what you said in a way. It's like I want to see what I want to see. I want to see. I want to
Mhm.
know. I don't want to be able to anticipate what's going to happen. But if it's not the thing that I thought was going to happen, I'm going to be pissed,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And it's like, okay, but you know, at the same time, I don't think that like it's this. eh.
I,
And I think that this story does it well. Like it doesn't shit on the past, but it also says we got to move forward a little bit.
well, this reminds me when you think about that whole argument, um, and I'll take this into the future because it's dealing with these same heroes, the original Marvel Atlas heroes. Um, Brubaker, when he brought back Bucky,
Yeah.
to me, I remember I was that guy reading it going, no, they're not going to bring back Bucky, and they're definitely not going to make Bucky having been a villain. I remember having a conversation with my brother, and I was like, I'm reading this. I'm hate reading this because I know what they're going to do, and it's going to suck, and I'm going to be so mad. And and as I read it, it was so good.
Yeah.
I had to say, okay, he did the impossible. He brought Bucky back, having been a villain for years, and I love it.
Yeah.
Right? So, I
Well,
that just reminded me, since it is the same heroes, it reminded me of that it is possible to love these things that you had in your youth. Uh, But look, I do think there is some truth that most of these things were better when they were written for their original audiences.
yeah.
Right? When they were written for kids, there was there was a purity to it. It was better.
I
Uh,
mean, yeah,
I think,
I go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just going to say, and I think the other thing to keep in mind is that by the late 60s here, I think Marvel was starting to have some problems too. That sales were starting to decrease, and the sort of cool on campuses elements of Marvel had started to go away and the like. And
Mhm.
so, it's partly this we got to get away from nostalgia, And then it's partly getting hit in the face by Neil Adams and then Barry Windsor Smith. And suddenly you're going, oh, this is not the same comic book. I was still reading them as kids, and I love Neil Adams, and I love, all of
Yeah.
this stuff. But they were definitely a different animal in the 70s than they had been in the 60s.
Well, and I think that, it is and Sean and I have had this conversation about like uh uh were things was there a certain purity to things as they were originally conceived,
Hmm.
and to and that does speak to, like, I think that a lot of the problem is that things are supposed to be things are supposed to shift, right? Like, um, I don't think some pop culture thing is supposed to last for 200 years, and don't give me, like, I don't think it should go away, but I mean, I would, like, if we thought about Superman the way we think about Sherlock Holmes, I think it might be a much healthier pop culture environment, right? It's the same reason, like, we talk about Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Like, it was a seminal thing for me. I can tell you that on some level I love all of it, right? On some level, right? But there is a real part of me, and I've said this many, many times. There is a real part of me that wishes that there was one Star Wars movie and that was it, right? And that the entire cultural impact of Star Wars was just that one movie. And I think that the legacy of that movie as a work of art and George Lucas as an artist would be much stronger and much more, um I don't want to say lionized, but I mean, like, much more powerful if he'd gone on and done other things.
You're taking
But
away my Ewoks.
So, yeah.
To me, the thing about Star Wars that I loved when it started, and it speaks to kind of your Sherlock Holmes versus Superman thing, is that for a long time after the movies and even during the movies, Lucas and Lucasfilm was very hands off in terms of people being able to play in their sandbox. So you had things like the Troops videos that went up on the internet, and
mhm,
you had people cosplaying, and you had people writing their own fan art and stuff, and they
mhm.
never stopped that at all. And I think that really the tragedy of Star Wars and all of the books that were written into that extended universe. And the tragedy of Star Wars for me is at a certain point they said, okay, we want to have our own chronology because we're going to make a boat ton of movies. And they essentially retconned out all of the extended chronology. They said nobody gets to make any films or anything anymore. All our likenesses, all our ideas, all our everything comes back in-house. And that really, in a real way, I think, killed the Star Wars sort of legacy that had been building. The fact that right now
Well,
anybody can write their own Sherlock Holmes is important.
like, but I will say, like, as somebody who, as I think that there was, and we're kind of off the subject, but that's okay, as Tad always tells me. Um, I think part of my experience with that, and what you're kind of talking about, is that resurgence of Star Wars after the Timothy Zahn novels, right?
Yep,
That's when things really started to pick up again. Um, I myself felt like I had been trained through the 80s when there was those hundreds and hundreds of pocket Star Trek novels, that I was like,
absolutely.
hey, I'll enjoy this,
Yeah.
but this isn't, like, if they make a movie that overturns this, then it's
Yep,
overturned. Like the tyranny of canon drives me insane, right? Because it's like
disaster.
it's like,
William
okay.
Conrad?
I think you might have cut out. And I don't know that many people outside, in fact, I don't think Tad knows who Cannon is
You
or
mean
the relationship
I
to
got a smile
William.
from
I
Dan.
was about to
I got a
say
smile.
Yeah.
the Wally Wood spy.
Sorry. But I
I
mean,
love
like, but
Cannon.
but like, and what's funny is that I started out this podcast when we're talking about the Kree Skull War, how much I loved that he was weaving all of this canon into it, right? And but the here's the difference, I think, right? Is that I think at this point it was like, okay, here comes a new story, and we're gonna say this, and everything that you thought, well, it happened, but it was a little bit different. And nobody went, no, wait, I saw it that way, and if you're gonna change it, I'm done, right? Um, I just think,
I would bet if you
yeah, I
looked
don't.
in the letter columns, there's at
Oh,
least one or two
100%.
people who were incensed by it.
I I will tell you this. I will tell you this right now. Everybody thinks that when I say something like that, I'm making some blanket statement that no one was angry. That's
There's always
absolutely
somebody
not
angry.
I
true.
think it's the difference between letter
But
pages and the internet.
That's
Well,
well,
yep.
yeah,
I
it's
have kind of a.
it's the.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sean. Please, please let me
Oh,
stop talking.
yeah. I was just going to ask if anyone can identify all those Golden Age heroes.
I didn't
Let's
really
see.
try.
That okay. There's
Shout out to the
Namor.
Heap.
There's the heap. Yes, the heap. There is the it was it the Spirit of 76? No, it was
Yeah, what was his name? The guy in the
uh
tricorn hat.
Patriot. Wasn't he one of the guys who took over as Captain America after Steve went on ice?
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay, of course, Captain America, Namor. I don't know the guy in the upper right or the upper left.
Torch. Is that the Black Marvel?
Might be.
And it looks like the Green Llama, but I don't think
Oh
that
yeah, yeah.
figure.
The Green Llama? I have never heard of the Green Llama. You guys have left me behind. I was holding up pretty well, but
So,
you have now left me in the dust. I have no
so
idea what's going on.
he could fly by he had his N or what do you call it? The Ammane Padme Hum. Ammane Padme Hum, which you hear a lot in pop culture if someone needs a mantra.
Alrighty then.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So yeah. Hey, Roy Thomas knew his golden age heroes. That's for sure.
I would bet he did.
Um, but yeah, no, I think that but yeah, like to your I can't imagine that there wasn't somebody in the letter column going like, why the hell would Ben Grimm talk that way? Why they, you know?
Exactly.
But then we get up to the farm, and then we got the Skrulls impersonating the FF. Now, are those the same?
Mhm.
Right.
I will also say that I think, and I haven't read the backstory, I think you guys are giving Thomas too much credit for having had an actual plan on this. Because having reread it now and read it when I was younger, it seems an awful lot like he's just making it up as he goes. Because there are a lot of twists and turns to come, gentlemen. A lot of
I
twists and turns to come.
I I have always said, and again, Star Wars seems to be like I always think uh I always think that a good writer has some idea of what the story ultimately is supposed to mean. And if you know what the story is ultimately supposed to mean, then you can make any sort of adjustment, right? You can change everything, right? As long as you understand what you're trying to get at. Now, what is I haven't read the last three issues, so I don't know what Thomas is getting at, and I don't know if this all feeds towards it. But I mean, I assume that it is a return of the more classic Avengers lineup. Um, and I do feel like there does seem to be some, like, the first three issues were the Kree, the second three issues were the Skrulls. So I assume the third three issues, the last three issues will be more of some sort of conflict, you know, Kree Skrull war, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is just all about that war is going on out in deep space, and we're just the beachhead or a little speck of dirt that they see some uh, uh, military value in having control over. I don't know. I'm curious. And the joy of it is knowing that I'm curious and that I'm ready
Yep.
to find out what happens. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's, and the other thing is, to what you're saying, is like, this is also the one thing about comic books as we're talking about it in this time period that we're talking about, it's very much commercial art, right? It is work for hire, right? It is somebody saying, I need you to write a story about these characters, blah, 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 month by month. And of course, you're like, oh, I got an idea. We'll do that. And then we'll do that. And it is sort of like jazz, right? So you're just like
Mhm.
improvising. And, you know, what was it that the jazz museum musician said? If you make a mistake, do it again, and everybody will think you intended it. So, so
Also, it's
I mean, I think,
it's not the wrong note that makes it wrong, it's the note after.
yeah,
So if you can adjust that next note will make that note right.
yeah, um, yeah, and I think that, so yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think that there is sort of okay, what are we doing this week? Plus, like, let's not discount the influence of the Marvel method, right? If you're handing somebody a basic plot, and Stan talked about this all the time, and Neil Adams comes back with some sort of sequence that's like, where the hell did that come from? Okay, well, now I got to make that work. So you know again, it's like jazz, it's improvisation, it's listening to each other, it's
Yeah. I mean,
working off what
Did anybody else would issue 93 have been really sort of boring had it been done by a regular artist to anybody else? Because it is not a lot happening except him sort of crawling around inside the vision with microbes kind of hitting him. But every page was just this visual feast where I'm like, I don't care what the plot is. I'm just going to look at
yeah,
this.
yeah, the layouts. That
Yep.
the top of one page is just the close up of Hank's eyes through the helmet,
Hmm.
and
mm,
it's amazing. It reminded me of a Doom
yeah, with
cover from
with the
Grandma. But
it's page 15, and there's the reflection of
the circuitry and everything.
mechanisms. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah, no, I think that, in a very real way, like, as much as I'm loath to say this as somebody who fancies themselves a writer, you know, Marvel is, like, I always feel like this jumping off point for Marvel, the greatest Marvel stuff is the art. and especially in this era
Mhm.
when the Marvel method is still 100% in play, right? Um, because that's you like who knows? Like maybe for all we know, Roy Thomas had a phone conversation with Neil Adams and was like, okay, well, here's what we got to do. We got to make sure that we get this information out of the vision. We've got to, so Hank Pym's going to show up and he's going to go inside the vision and do all this stuff. And maybe they talked about something else, thinking that that was going to be like 3 pages or whatever. And then Neil comes back and says, you know what? I made this the whole book, you know? And
Notice it's also a longer, it's 34 pages.
Yes, it was 25 cents.
I remember hearing about Gene Colan doing that a lot.
yeah,
That they would give him the script, and then he would go off and do these magnificent, like, action scenes and whatever, and then the plot wasn't hardly there. So every Daredevil comic for like 5 years was like 18 pages of just whatever happening, and then 4 pages where it all needs to get resolved really quickly to finish the issue.
I think I read an interview with Gene Colan where he was talking about that. He was like, "Oh, I'd be going," and then I'd realize, "Oh God, I got to wrap all this up, and I've got 2 pages left." Um, but yeah, no, I think that is it is funny because like now I'm thinking about it. Now I'm thinking about like how much the Marvel method would influence everything, you know? And we know Roy Thomas is an adherent to the Marvel method. We know that. So, um, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Crazy, man. Um,
And then it's weird because you get to, once you get next week, next month, we'll get into some of the stuff where you get Barry Windsor Smith, and he's
yep,
just a really interesting and cool and different artist. So
yep.
I also envy people who actually get to read it in order, because I remember, I was buying these things wherever I could find them. So I had it completely out of order and had no idea what was going
Right.
on half the time. And every time I got a new issue, go back and reread everything that I had, try and piece it together. Um,
Yeah.
a bunch of different
I don't
things.
know.
There was a Legion
I
War of some sort I had to try and do that with too. Took forever to get.
Oh, the Great Darkness saga, wasn't that?
I
I know
was
that.
around for that. There was a Kund War earlier in
Oh
like the
yeah, 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 yeah.
230s
Yeah,
that
yeah.
took me forever to get all the issues of that. And there was an important one where something happened and no freaking internet, so I just didn't know what happened. So
Well, and the thing is like I don't think people like it's funny. It's funny when I hear like younger comics fans talking about like when they read the older issues, they get frustrated because it always is restating the plot. And
mhm.
I don't like the reality of how we had to gather comics in the 70s, early 80s,
Yep.
like even in the early 80s with the direct market existed, like most of the time I did not live anywhere near a comic book shop. So
Same
it
thing.
was whatever I could find at the drugstore, and you would
Yeah.
be like,
I
and
mean, that old saying, every comic is some kid's first comic.
yeah,
I was reminded of that today because, as Amazing Spider-Man nears issue 1000, I decided to pick up one.
yeah,
He did not
Hmm.
they did not honor that dictum.
yeah, no. I
'Cause
look,
I
I've
know
been,
Spider-Man, and I'm like, I don't know any of this. I don't. There's,
Yep.
there's nothing here that really interests me.
I am actually I have a digital subscription to Amazing Spider-Man. All right. I'm one of these people who I refuse. I don't care what kind of crossover is going. I'm not going to subscribe to something else just so I can like I should be able to figure out your crossover through what I'm reading, right?
Right.
And there was just this crossover with Venom. Venom, who's now Mary Jane Watson is Venom. Who cares? I'm like, what is going on? Like every issue, I'm like, okay, okay. And by about halfway through, I kind of figured out what had happened in whatever had happened over in Venom. And then, we get to the end and I'd be like, okay. But I I don't know, man. Like I I'm gonna tell you, I'm really worried about Marvel right now because have you guys been reading about this thing with the John Romita Jr. cover for Spider-Man
Yeah, they
1000?
pulled it
I've seen it.
because it
They
looked
pulled
like
Because
he
it.
was shrugging.
yeah, they were like the it was and it looked like a John Romita Spider-Man. I've seen him draw Spider-Man that way 100 times, like with his shoulders up where he's like, and instead of just saying, okay, you don't like that cover, don't buy it, they pull it. And I'm
Why
like,
did they pull it?
I didn't know they pulled it.
Yeah,
they pulled it.
I ordered the Ditko variant.
Well,
I know who I am.
so
But
Dan, here's the thing is that okay, they had John Romita Jr. draw a cover.
Sure.
And basically it's just and then they had I forget the artist, but they painted it.
Okay.
So it was like a painted version of a John Romita Jr. Spider-Man. And like it's basically Spider-Man flying through the air. There's buildings on either side, and he's shooting webs out of both hands, but he's kind of like this. Like
Sure.
his shoulders are up by his ears. And apparently people just lost their fucking mind for some reason about this shoulder thing. And
Because
like,
because they
I don't
thought he
know.
was shrugging. Like 1,000
I've
issues,
saw
who cared? And what it was
I've now
supposed to
I've
be was the ground's eye view of what it would look like while he was swinging.
yeah,
And
no,
and
I've now found it, and yeah, that makes no sense. Okay.
well, and the thing is, today I saw some like tick. Somebody had done a TikTok with going like, they canceled it. We got them to cancel it, and I'm like, and it was like somebody else playing this video, and they're like, are you insane? Like, it's like, of course, a Ramita should draw one of the covers of Spider-Man 1000. Like, we can't get John Sr. to do it. So let's get John Jr. to do it, who had his own long and
Mhm.
well-regarded run on that
Mhm.
book. Like, and it's like, and there's what? There's 55 variant covers of it. If you
right.
don't like that cover, buy another one. I'm just like, but it's nuts. I'm like, I don't even understand I don't understand people anymore.
Well, I mean, if you look at the sales numbers, it's not very good over there.
Well, you know what?
But I mean, it's good
To
everywhere else. Marvel and DC are getting what they deserve. All they do is frickin' superhero comic books. They've got the best talent in the world. And instead of me getting sweet science fiction and detective stories and westerns, I get the same 10 frickin' superheroes that I've been getting since I was 6 years old. And
well, and the
I
thing
will
is,
admit, I just want these great creators to do something better. Vertigo returning, I like for DC to get them away from it a little bit. But anyway,
well, yeah, but and there's always a place. Despite what I said, like I do think that like pop culture is supposed to have these cycles, right? That something new comes out. Flash Gordon falls aside, Star Wars comes up. Star Wars falls aside, and then I don't know, whatever. Like that.
Harry
That's
Potter.
that's that's a natural process that actually kind of allows these older things to be re-evaluated and you don't build an entire corporate hierarchy out of making everything the same, right? Like, but there's always a place for these characters that people respond to and that have a long history. But yeah, you're right. I mean, like there is a certain amount of I would like to see some more inventive sort of ideas. I would like to see a little more
it's
outside the
what
box thinking, but even
well,
with these characters, man, I would love like a Batman series that was like hardcore uh film noir detective stuff. but like, look, I've been reading Spider-Man for a long time, and I don't collect physical books anymore. I just don't have the room for it. And so I get everything digitally. I get Detective, I get Batman, I get Spider-Man, I get a couple of other, I get Fantastic Four. But quite honestly, I outside of Mark Waid's um World's Finest, and even that's starting to lose its luster with me. And same with his Justice League. And I really do like Fantastic Four right now. Everything just feels uh like I think it's a combination of things. I think that there's creators who don't want to do anything new because they know they're not going to get paid for it, you know?
Let's
And but at the same time, it's like I'm tired of the rearranging of deck chairs, Like, okay, Alfred's like, okay, we've been playing this game where Alfred's dead for like what, 5 years now? It doesn't add anything to the book, right? Like, in fact, I think it takes something away from it, right? And just in terms of writing like a real good baseline Batman story, right? Doesn't need to be doesn't need to be life changing. It doesn't need to be. It's just something that you can pick up and be like, I'm glad I read that, right? And it's also true. Sorry, I'm on my soapbox. Sorry. Um, but I mean, it's the thing that Sean and I have talked about. I also would like to get a comic book, a mainstream comic book that takes me more than 5 minutes to read.
no. Well, I mean, but like look at the fact they just announced just that the new Legion of Superheroes series is coming out. Hasn't been one out for years. And I'm really conflicted because I saw on Blue Sky the guy who's going to be writing it, Williamson, talking about, we're going to honor the old stuff and we're going to make it accessible for the new. And the needle that these guys are being asked to thread with every series,
Hmm.
there's a part of me that's just like, dude, I am 57 years old. When I discovered the Great Darkness Saga, I was 12 or 13. There is
Right.
no goddamn way you are going to write a Legion story that's going to impress me because I'm 57 years old and jaded, and no matter how great it is, it's not going to live up to what Levitz and Giffen did when I was 12. So
Right.
I hope they abandon me. What I think comics needs to do really is abandon all of us. We can come along for the ride and enjoy the
Yeah.
stuff with the kids if we want to, but they need to be
Yeah.
writing to get all of these Raina Tegelmeyer kids, to get all of these, Dogman or whatever kids. There are kids
Hmm.
reading comics everywhere,
Dogman's some good stuff.
and they and
Also
they
amazing
they
that it took so long for somebody to come up with Dogman. You had
it's
Batman, Catwoman, Spider-Man.
it's some dark stuff. I did not actually believe when Ben was first reading it, my son, that they literally sawed a guy and a dog in a half and
Yeah,
put them together.
yeah.
Like
They also
it's
teach you how to
nasty.
make comics.
But all these
Well,
kids, they come in, they read all of this great stuff. Scholastic has, all the Bone reprints and everything. They come out fully ready and they immediately go to manga because all that the mainstream comic book universe has for them is superheroes who basically are their grandparents.
right.
Why
Well, and the
why
thing
would we
is
expect
like,
them to go to that?
what better what better property do you have to do something different than the Legion of Superheroes? Like, it screams, do a big space opera story with
No,
all of this wildly diverse cast of characters that you can use or you cannot use. I know that the Legion fan base is intense, right? I know that.
absolutely. We're
But
also dying off
right.
relatively quickly.
Yeah, 100%. But it's also just like as a concept, it's
Yeah,
so rich to have somebody come in and be like, yeah, let's take this and run with it. And every like the last time, When was the last time that they did that in a mainstream way? And like the way it,
Asian
what I,
2005 with Kitson, I would bet, is the last time they really
yeah,
redid it.
Well,
yeah.
They've
they
But I
tried
mean,
here and there and brought him back as Evil Legion and done some
no,
things
yeah,
like
yeah,
this.
Bendis had a
But
run.
yeah.
oh,
Well,
okay, yes, Bendis had a run. I love Bendis. I did not. That's the one where they stole Aquaman's trident or whatever, and yeah, I was.
well, I mean,
may-
but
They
yeah, it's
tug
like
Maybe
on
that was for the
Superman's
kids,
cape.
and it's what we wanted. So, what's that?
what?
I said, did they tug on Superman's
I
cape?
think I think they did.
They spit into the wind?
Oh my God.
Did they
I
pull the
I have
mask off
not
the old Lone Ranger?
I have not read that entire series. I should not be talking. I gave up after a while.
Well,
Tad, did you
look,
read that and did you enjoy those? You
I
like that run?
did. I enjoyed it. I'm not a Legion aficionado. My friend Johnny did. He like literally runs the private Legion base group, Facebook group, that has tons of the creators involved. He did enjoy it, but
Well, I got to go
it's
back and
hard.
give it another try
It,
then.
it is hard to make Legion stuff that Johnny doesn't enjoy.
There you go. That is kind of where I'm at as well. Um, there was just something about that one that I'm also a huge
well,
Moon Knight fan, and the Moon Knight Bendis thing I enjoyed at the time, but then went back later, and I'm like, this is just sometimes the changes are too many changes for me. So,
well,
Right.
I think that there was something you said earlier that I think is so true about all of this legacy IP stuff, right? Is like we're in our 50s, right? I'm not that much younger than you are, Sean. About in the same, we're all in the same age group, right? I I'm perfect. Like, look, I'm perfectly happy to read a Spider-Man comic or a Legion comic or something every day. I also know intellectually it's never going to hit me, like you said, as much as Great Darkness War, right? That there's like this benchmark where you've hit this, and it's like, okay, that was my Legion, or
mhm.
that was, or that was my Star Wars, or that was, and the thing is like that there has to be some sort of evolution of the property if you really want it to live. And the thing, it's one of those things where I always said this about, like, I don't understand why people, like, I don't understand why people think the Fantastic Four is so hard, right? Like that, oh, it only works if you put it in a 1960s sort of context and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't really understand what you're talking about. This is like, it's got epic science fiction. It's got um it's got the family dynamic, it's got the romance, it's got, it's like all of this stuff is all baseline human interest things that people can just enjoy, but it always comes down to this, well, people want it to be this, or people want it to be that, and I'm like, don't worry about what we want it to be. Make it the best make it your version of what it is, and instead of uh and coming back to Roy Thomas, I do think that, like, what we're seeing
Mhm.
here in this series is him, like, he's still working for Stan, but now he's sort of like, I'm going to take this and I'm going to run with it. And I'm going to do
Agree.
something that I want to do with it. And I'm going to make it, it's going to grow up a little bit, right? Stan gave people real human emotions, right? I think that is what Stan did with those books, right? But, you know, Roy comes in and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna go head first into this political thing. All right.
Yep.
I'm gonna talk about, like, one of the greatest comic book relationships uh of all time we're seeing being born in these stories, with the Vision and the Scarlet Witch.
Mhm.
And it's super interesting. It's interesting in that, like, and everything is derivative, but it's interesting in that same way of, like, how does Spock fall in love with someone, like that kind of thing, somebody who doesn't have emotion. Although there was one line in there, and I was like, where it was like the Vision was saying, "If you cannot tell by my modulated voice or whatever," and I'm like,
Right.
I can't yell or whatever. But whatever. That's a sideline that doesn't really matter to what I'm saying. But I mean, like, it is like what I think what is happening in this Kree Skrull storyline is something that our corporate or overlords don't really want to, you know, well, how do I sell? It require, like it, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. When you brought that back, I'm like, fantastic work by Mark. Actually, bringing this back to Roy Thomas. I like that. But you're right.
He's good at
So
that.
he is. So do you think that the Scarlet Witch is in on the romance right now, or does she not have any feelings for Vision as of yet? It's just him so far noticing her.
Oh no, I think she does.
I think she
She
does.
does? Okay.
Yeah. I think they're both confused by it, right? I think that I think I think the Vision is processing what this experience is,
Hmm.
it's that the greatest Sarek line ever, why did you marry her? It seemed the logical thing to do. And the thing is that's what's fascinating to me, is that we're actually sort of seeing that kind of relationship, you know. And I think that, Wanda is protecting herself because how could you not? But I mean, like, he's doing a really good job of having these little baby steps towards it, like we see it and we see it building and we see, but yeah, I'm with Sean. I think that Wanda is in on it. Maybe not fully, but I think she's noticed.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's
There you
one
go.
moment where she's concerned for him. I was just flipping through to see where, and Pietro is like, he's fine, which also the jealousy of Pietro is,
Hmm.
Well, yeah, Pietro's definitely clocked it. Yeah.
He is not happy. It's awesome.
Also, I like and like we didn't even talk about the end of issue 94. Like, and now the Inhumans are in it. So I'm like, okay, Roy, you are just like you are running through a field of your fandom and just being like, let's do this and let's do that and let's do this.
I, I will say the end of that issue, I read it and I was like, oh, this is setting up one of the greatest splash pages ever.
Right.
Hmm.
And that's for 95. So, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, that's where that page is from.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Yeah. Anyway, no, I think this is it's really interesting, like, to me, like, suggesting this storyline was purely out of my curiosity of putting it against the fourth world, right? As a sort of similar kind of thing. And it really is interesting how similar it is when you think about it, because the fourth world has this whole cosmic thing, but it all was very earth-based. Everything took place on Earth, and it was all sort of about. But the thing was, is that it didn't want to grapple with the characters on Earth, right? uh Jack was in his God thing, but I'm also like, man, if this is what you wanted to do, you should have taken it all and had it be battles between, New Genesis and Apocalypse, and make it this huge cosmic thing. Um, but yeah, it's been interesting because it's also made me think a lot about what do I love about serialized storytelling, and what do I love about having these characters that stay around for decades, and that and what's the difference between where we are now, where it does, like it, because it's really interesting because we were talking about how like it seems like nobody wants to create anything new because they know they're not going to get paid for it now, right? But like Roy isn't creating anything new here. He's just really pushing all the pieces around as much as he can, right?
Mhm.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the weird thing is that at this point, it's a great time to come into the Marvel Universe. It's probably why, like Conway and Thomas and Wolfman and all these guys have so
Mhm.
much fun in the 70s, because literally Jack Kirby just basically vomited ideas onto the page for a decade and then
Yep.
left.
Yeah.
And now there's all this stuff to play with. I was surprised at just how few appearances Inhumans had in the
Mhm.
comics before this. Like they really kind of pulled them out of the dustbin. There was a run. I don't know if I mentioned it to Tad. I don't know if you guys have read them, but there's 3 or 4 issues, maybe 5, of Inhuman stories actually, where they've got their own
Mhm.
book, essentially an Amazing Adventures Volume 2, where Neil Adams does the art, and they're just absolutely fantastic.
Mhm.
Stories are kind of goofy, but doesn't matter because it's Neil Adams art. But they've
Yeah.
only been in probably 20 stories
Yeah.
before he kind of pulls them off the dustbin and says, "Hey, let's make these a bigger part of the universe."
Well,
So,
and the thing, like Jack famously, like had these ideas and he'd throw them out there and then sort of forget about them, you know,
mhm,
like, but I mean, that's also, look, that's also that world, right? Like, I don't think like
mhm,
the basis of where creators were at, and I'm not trying to say it was better or that they were treated better or anything like that, because clearly they weren't. But there was this sort of understanding that you were doing work for hire and that yeah, you were gonna come up with ideas, but they weren't gonna be yours, right? And I think a lot of the tension about Stan is that Stan had that very clearly in his head, right? So whatever. But uh but like you could just throw ideas out and then they were gone, right? And they were
mhm.
you didn't have to worry about like, oh, okay, look, I created Mongoose Man and he showed up in Avengers Assemble episode 6. Do I get a check, or where's my $80, or if it's something like my residuals, where's my $30? Uh, um, it's just a really like I think it was, and again they were all fanboys who were just like running wild, right? Stan was nominally in charge, but he was sort of not, and of course, you know this whole era leads right into kind of disaster, right? Especially if you ask Jim Shooter, where you have all of these writer editors
Yep.
basically doing their own books and running wild and doing everything at their own schedule and not paying attention to continuity and just run it, and that they all hated him when he put an end to that.
Yep.
And we're perilously close to that era where there was like 6 Marvel editors in chief inside of like 4 years, and
Yep.
it's and part of that is, it's the early 70s, and right, comics are about to hit one of the great eras of, oh yeah, these comics aren't going to be around in a year and a half, you know. Um, the
Yep.
we're about
But
to
yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy because you're right. All these guys, Conway and Wolfman, everybody ends up being editor in chief for about 6 months
Yep.
to a year. And then
Yeah.
when they drop it, they're like, but I still want to be in control of my own stuff. So they keep their little fiefdom. And then the next
Right.
guy comes in and drops it and gets a fiefdom.
Yeah.
But it's also amazing how young they all are. Like they're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
just running wild. I think if I'm not mistaken, when Shooter comes in and takes over as editor in chief, he's 24 years old.
Yeah.
And he's like not that much different in age than the other guys around him. All of Marvel at this point is just basically run by a bunch of kids, none of whom have business degrees, right?
Sure. And but you know, the only thing that Shooter has is that he's basically been in the industry since he was 14.
Yep.
So he has probably 4 or 5 more years of experience than any of these guys. And he worked under uh Norm no
Mort
uh
Weisinger.
Mort
Weisinger,
Mort
Schwartz,
Weisinger.
those guys.
Yeah, Mort Weisinger. And it's amazing when you hear Shooter talk about working for Mort Weisinger and how much he hated it and how
Mm-hmm.
mean and awful Mort was. And then when you hear people talking about working for Jim Shooter, it's the same fucking stories. And it's like, so Mort actually taught you how to be an editor, and
Oh,
you don't want to admit it, but uh fascinating man.
yep.
I find Jim Shooter endlessly fascinating, and Mort
I
Weisinger as
I do
well.
as well.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
learned something about Shooter, by the way, a couple days ago I did not know previously. I didn't realize when he did those first scripts when he was like 13 or whatever, he drew them as well.
Yeah.
He actually drew the first couple Legion stories he did. And I'm like, man, that is just insane that at
Well,
that age he's getting
and it's
published.
fat to listen to him talk about it and how embarrassed he was when he like had drawn these cruddy little pages and they hand him off to people like oh God, what's the Superman artist? My
Kurt
brain.
Swan.
Oh, boring.
Yeah, hand him off to Kurt Swan to draw them, and Jim is like, I thought he was going to be like, "Fuck you, kid," and he's like, "Oh no, thanks, this helps a lot." And I'm like, but I mean, but I think that speaks to what we were talking about before. It's like this is commercial art, man. These are guys that
Mhm.
are just working under deadlines. It's 1 year. I always remember this because and Sean was the one who was there. I wasn't, but the inker at San Diego who was talking about using AI for inking jobs and how he was able to maintain deadlines and stuff. That he was training the AI off of his own work to be able to ink like he would, and then he would just go over and do touch ups.
Right.
And
Oh,
I was like, uh, Sean should tell that story because he was there. But in my brain, I was like, well, it's it's a job, right? It's a deadline job. I mean, in a way, I sort of understand it, you know?
Well, what I mean, Neil Adams, like Neil said something like if you can't copy, if you can't trace, you're not going to make it in comics, right?
Hmm.
You know, and you can look there are a couple of times in even what we were reading, it's like, oh, that's a standard, Neil Adams, picture, right?
Yep.
Now they have the grace of being Neil Adams copying Neil
Right.
Adams.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, everyone has their own tricks.
Yep.
And look, AI is, I don't know, I hate the thought of it,
Yeah.
but training it on your own work, is that the worst thing? I don't, I don't know. And
I
to me,
I
there's a difference between art and commerce.
Yeah.
And I think about that all the time. We get a lot of commerce. How much art do we get? And if
What
we get all this commerce, do I really care so long as I can still find places where real human beings are expressing their emotions?
hmm
It's just a different marketplace, but I'm going to seek out art by humans.
Well, yeah, that's the way I feel about it. Like, I think that now we're onto a wholly different conversation. But like recently, with Rush going back on tour, Rush, um, I started like looking at various Rush fan groups, and the slop is every fucking where in that community. Like, and I'm just like, at one point I got into it with one guy and I was like, he's like, oh no, it's just for fun. It's just, and I'm like, he's like, who is it stealing from? And I'm like, look, from what the way you're talking about this, you would be just as happy if Alex and Getty had programmed some sort of computer to do drum beats in the style of Neil Peart rather than hiring Anakin Niles to play drums on this tour. And I'm just like, that's it 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 it's so aggravating to me. But to Sean's point, it's also like, if my job is to get this done in a certain amount of time, and in order to feed my family, I need to get as much done as possible, and I can put my work into a computer and say, learn how to do it like I do, that actually makes sense. And it's just crazy. I don't know. I don't know what the answer
So, I
is.
mean, at that point, are you still eligible for things like Best Inker Awards? I mean, the problem is that it looks like the Eisners now are going to be banning submissions with AI components. A lot of writing sites are not
Yeah.
accepting submissions if there's any AI elements. I mean, do we really want to separate our comics into these are the real ones and these are that the problem is nobody's coming to any kind of agreement on things. It makes me laugh that it's the Rush fans that are doing this because Ready
Right.
Player One, the guy who wrote Ready Player One, is exactly the kind of guy I would think would be doing AI slop constantly. So maybe it's just the Rush
Well,
geek
yeah.
element are strong in this somehow.
Well, yeah, it's like, like, and they all think of Neil Peart as some sort of like, uh prophet. And I'm like, Neil, who talked about like learning your skill and working at it
Hmm.
and making yourself better. Do you really think that he would think this was cool? And yeah, I don't know. It's
Yep,
it's it's fascinating to
that
me.
is.
But I mean, yeah, and I totally understand what you're saying. But it is like, if you can if if you can if like, it really does come down to this idea of like, if you're training an AI off of your own work.
Well, then I mean, you don't have the ethical elements in terms of that. It's just a matter of you're never
Well,
going to do anything new the AI is not going to produce new and interesting,
yeah,
and
that's
your
true.
talents aren't going to be getting better. I mean, there's
Right.
these guys that have
Well, and
been,
that's the problem. Yeah. I mean, like, that's what's really scary, is that nothing will ever get any better, that this is just where we're at, right? And it's like one of the most terrifying things in the world is to go look at like the top 20 tracks on, say, Spotify, because they're all AI generated.
I've been hearing that was happening. That's
Yeah.
kind of crazy.
And it's nuts.
Hmm.
But I mean, like, I do think there is this ethical thing between like, okay, I'm trying to look, I'm a commercial artist who am trying to get this many jobs done in this amount of time, and I'm using this tool as a tool to do that.
There you go.
I can kind of understand that, but I also think that that is a slippery slope. I'm not trying to justify what I'm talking about. I'm just saying that it's an interesting thing to talk
I
about.
think I think where it gets most interested in is, to me, um, I mean, you know that I just hate the term AI, period, because none of what we have is really
No.
artificial intelligence yet. It's various kinds of programming, some with machine learning, some without. Um, so like on one level, like where do you draw the line? I mean, there are some programs that are calling lasso tools AI now. Lasso tools are things that have been used by comic artists doing digital comics forever. So, generative AI is a different thing, you know.
Yeah.
But
I just
then
read.
it's also, where is the generative AI being used and how? You know, are you using the generative AI to create photo reference, or are you using the generative AI to create the final product?
But I mean,
You
the other
know,
thing is, even, when you're talking about the guy who does his who does the model based on his own work. Todd Klein has basically been the top letterer in comics for ages. If he programs an AI to letter like him and gets it working properly, there's now exactly one letterer in all of comics, and everybody else needs to go and find a new job.
That's true.
You know?
Yeah.
And so at that point, there is also sort of this protection of industry and creators that
100%.
I understand why in some ways the creative types are like, we just need to put up a firewall against this, or
Yeah.
eventually, it's going to be economy of scale and of who gets the best model. And
Yep.
so, that I think is a frightening aspect, because once that happens, then there are no more Todd Kleins, because nobody ever gets a gig to better their skills and they have to go work at McDonald's instead.
Well, and I think that is that look, and please, nobody think that what I'm talking about is trying to defend AI, because I'm not. I'm vehemently anti this process. But I think that
but I do think you're making an important distinction between a tool and AI, whatever that means.
well, and the thing is, it's invading everything, because I was just reading about some band, can't remember, but their longtime cover artist, who did their album covers, uh, works in like collage sort of things, and does it with Photoshop. And that they found out that some of the elements that she had grabbed to put into this collage were AI generated, and didn't know.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of people accused them uh, of using AI, and they're like, hey, look, we believe in our artist. Our artist,
Adobe
it was
stock
all
photos doesn't actually say in many cases that
yeah,
there's AI generation on it.
right. And they were like, this thing was put together with hand, I mean, like by hand in a computer, right? Because like, that's the other thing, is like, are you going to just say nobody can use a computer anymore? Which, as somebody who loves original artwork, would be really nice, but
But
because
then
like,
we also have to make certain they're getting paid better.
yeah, sure,
I
100%.
mean,
But I mean,
because that's the other. I mean, like this is the other. Like, I hate it when I hear about the non-creatives using AI tools to not use artists. Um, and artists using a tool to be more productive, I don't feel as upset about.
well, but it is just like, I think it is the slippery slope sort of thing.
It's an incredibly. No, I get that too. Like,
Yeah.
like
I just want the scientists to use it to cure disease
I
and
mean, it could
and
be
cold
really
fusion.
it it
Leave
could
the
be
art to
really
humans.
useful if properly trained on the
Well,
right
look,
data in terms of doing that stuff.
I think, but I do think, and I have said this forever, and people always get mad at me, but I'm going to say it, is that like a huge component as to why this is popular, and speaking about being on those Rush fan groups, is because there are many, 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 many consumers who are really excited about the idea that they can just make something that is completely to their whims and their desires, and that we can talk about conglomerates, we can talk about the billionaires, we can talk about it, but if 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 the public wants this shit, if the public is okay with having the top 20 songs on Spotify be AI generated, like, what are you going to do?
Right.
You know?
There's even a movie out now. I can't remember exactly where. It's a documentary, but it's a generative documentary where each time it's different. And I know there's a
Mhm.
lot of studios planning to actually get to the point where movies no longer are static, but you can set your preferences. So eventually you'll be able to say, there's a new detective show out. Well, the sex setting is here, the violence setting is here, whatever, and then it will generatively rebuild the movie specifically to your tastes and your preferences so that we no
Well,
longer have shared culture even. Everybody gets their own version of everything.
because like, we talk about how an artist who uses AI never surprises themselves, never gets better, never learns anything new. It's always the same. But it's the same. What you're describing is going to be the same thing. Like you will
Absolutely.
never, because like, it's the same. Look, uh, I make theater. I think that people sitting in a room together experiencing a story is part of the deal. I think that that is also part of the deal of seeing a movie. I think that's, and those sort of experiences are becoming far and far between. And it allows us to live inside worlds where it's like, well, this is what I want, and this is all that I want. And anything outside of it is evil or is attacking me. And it's like,
Yep.
uh, part of the experience of art, at least narrative art, is to have things come into your mindset that make you question yourself or challenge you to experience something that's outside of your realm, right? And the scary thing about what you're talking about is that it's like, okay, so I can make sure that I never have to deal with anybody being gay ever again, or I never have to deal with somebody who's racist or like you know
Or you never have to
and
deal with anybody of another race because you can
yeah, that's
just
right.
tune the dial down to all white people in your movie.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
And that,
it's really crazy in terms
yeah,
of how frightening this can be in terms of closing people's minds even more than they
yeah.
are before, I think. And that
And
is, yeah.
that's even outside of like the whole like they're going to take over the world and blow us all up and all that, all that shit. It's just like I believe that social media has fundamentally warped our brains in a lot of ways, uh,
Mhm.
just by the siloing of our thought process and the siloing of who we interact with. But I think that this is just going to make it worse. So on that note, good night, everybody.
Oh.
I have exhausted my brain on this one. So
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's something that's still emerging. Um, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is one of the reasons that we need to start grappling with it now, because history has not shown well that like wait and see in terms of figuring out what the problems might be and accounting for them works out well.
mm,
Um, but there's a huge element of um, we don't know what it'll look like next year, much less 10 years from now. A lot of
Anybody
what's
else
being
got young?
promised, the people who do it, who actually like do the programming are like, yeah, they're promising that. It can't do that. It won't do that anytime soon. If they try to make it do that, there's going to be disastrous consequences, and then we'll change.
Well, and Bezos was even talking a couple days ago about how he's like, people keep complaining about the water usage, but why is it that, if these machines are doing great stuff for our future, we can't let the water usage for people get in the way of, and I'm like, he's literally willing to just
Well,
basically,
but that's another one of the things is like China has what's considered to be as good or better AI than anything we have with significantly less energy output, which means
we're
that our
not,
lack of competition, our lack of regulation on it whatsoever, our lack of oversight means that we've got a lot of bloat. We're not necessarily better at it. And we're certainly not taking everything into consideration that we have to. Um,
Also, man to young people, as far as I've seen, realize the threat from this and hate AI
Yeah,
increasingly
it goes
more
back
and
and
more.
forth. Some of them are so over the moon for it that, like, even when it gets stuff wrong, you have trouble convincing them that it's wrong. And public service announcement for any young people listening: ChatGPT and pretty much all of the freely available AI large language models don't calculate well. So don't use them for math. They do it really, really badly. And then you think that you can't do it because you check your work with AI and it says you're wrong, even when you're right and the AI is wrong. I've had to deal with this more than once. The person who's just frustrated, I'm like, look at the answer key. It's right, but why does the AI say this yet? Because the AI is dumb. And never learned this part of geometry. It's not doing that. Yeah. I'm always wary of getting rid of tools entirely, but understanding what the tool is
Yep.
something that as a society we sometimes are slow to do. Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. I got to get off. I just got
I was about
an
to say,
email.
but I think we're running out of
There you go.
steam,
Yeah.
and we've certainly shifted. Well, vision is an AI,
Right.
so
There you go. Appreciate you guys inviting me into this one, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
These books, from basically when the Comics Code Authority got changed after the Stan Lee kind of story, that drug story, up until Secret Wars, are my favorite Marvel comics of all time. I think
and
71 to
Secret
84
Wars was my
is
first
my.
comic.
Wow.
I
There you
love
go.
this era.
I was 4.
Well,
Yep.
I've never
So-
read this Darkness Saga, so maybe that's something.
I would love to do the Great Darkness
Oh.
Saga next. I would also love to do 5 Years Later because that's the one that I haven't read yet.
Well,
There you
I
go.
mean, like we've talked about what to do after this. I mean, we talked about the X-Men. We've talked like now, like Great Darkness Saga. That would be
Lots of options.
I haven't read that since it was out. So,
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's all
lots
the
of
Tomb of
options.
Dracula stuff, the
Oh,
Swamp
Tomb of
Thing
Dracula.
stuff. There, if we go over to DC, so much good stuff from
We'll
this
figure
era.
it out. We'll
We'll
figure
figure
it
it
out.
out.
We got time. We got
Right.
brains. But for the Heroes in Bronze Book Club, this has been Mark, Sean, and Dan on 22 Panels, and we'll see you after the next page.